Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Dragons and Dice. So here recently I was playing around with some character creations, and I'm a big fan of fighters and monks, and I thought, man, if we put these two together, we'll make a dex-based fighter. We'll do, two-weapon fighting, dual wielder, all that good jazz where we get, Nick and Vex and the flurry of blows and everything that's going to just let us punch people, 600 times around. And I thought, what we really need for this is to be able to put Hunter's Mark on it, because that'll be another D6 on every single one of these attacks. And being a fighter monk combo, we're not going to have anything to concentrate on anyway. And in my mind, I was like, let's go Ranger. And then I was like, wait, the best place to get Hunter's Mark is actually from a 3-level dip in Paladin and take Vengeance Pally. You get it off their spell list for being a Vengeance Paladin. And then we'll also have Smites for if we crit. And we'll have that awesome Vow of Enmity. And we'll just have advantage on all the attacks we're doing. Only problem is, that takes a lot of stat points to be able to multiclass into Paladin. You got to have Strength and Charisma. You got to have the Dex and the Wisdom for the Monk. And then the Fighter, you're covered with the other two. But it really made us mad. We had so many attributes that we just had to boost, that when we got done, it wasn't really that good. And I was really disappointed. And that was actually what I was going to do this week's podcast on, was that my new awesome, multi-hitter monk fighter. But it got me to thinking, if you're playing high-end campaigns and you're going all the way up to level 20, what classes should be multi-classing out of? And how much are you going to give up if you, trade away your capstone to grab up a couple other early level features from some other subclasses? So, in this episode of Dragons and Dice, I'm going over what classes I think should be multi-classed if you're playing a in-game campaign, and what classes shouldn't. Let's check them out. Welcome to Dragons and Dice. So what I was thinking with this was, what if we gave up our last, 5 levels or 3 levels, or even if we just did a 2-level fighter dip, like we're a caster and we want to get second wind, action surge, and have constitution saving throws, and we just started off our career as a fighter. What would we be giving up with each class as we went through? And it ends up being a lot for some of them, and then for some other classes, it's like, man, there's really no point after getting like your second subclass feature to stay there, that you can get so much more from the others. And so I'm just going to go through each of the 12 classes and break down which ones I think you should multi-class out of and which ones I think you should go 1 to 20 to the end with, because those capstones are so good. And we'll just hit these in alphabetical order. And that's going to kick it off with those rage monsters. And that's going to be the good old barbarian. So at 16, this is going to be the same for all of them. And so I'll skip it from here on out. That's always going to be a feat. 19 is always going to be an epic boon. And so the epic boon can still be grabbed if you get a feat at 19 or 20. So that's not a big loss, because you're never going to forego that. But at level 18, as a barbarian, we get Indomitable Might. And this lets us just have our strength stat for any saving throw that we make with the strength check. And if it's less than, our strength will be 20 by this point. If it's less than 20, we can just make that roll a 20. That's really nice. At 17, skipped one. At 17, we get Improved Brutal Strike, and we get 2d10 extra damage when we use it, and we get to add 2 of the effects of the Brutal Strike. So that's a pretty good boost there, too. It's basically doubling what you're doing with your Brutal Strikes each turn. And then at level 20, we get +4 to Strength and Constitution. And, that's just an insane boost right there, because they can actually go up to 25 at this point. And so if you take your epic boon, put 1 more point in the strength, then get your capstone, you've got 25 strength stat at 20, and that's just amazing. We also get +1 to our rage damage in our last 5 levels. So, it's a lot to give up. Now, if you're going to do like a common multi-class for a barbarian, would be, take 3 levels of fighter or 4 levels of fighter if you wanted to get the feat there. And you're going to give up a lot for that. If you get action surge, is that actually going to do more damage over a fight if each short rest you get to make 2 extra attacks, versus you've added +2 to your strength and +1 to your rage? So every single attack, if you just capstone out and don't take action surge, will be doing 3 extra damage each round. And that's 2 attacks per round. So, that's 6 extra damage a round. You're getting 2 extra attacks 3 battles a day. I don't think it's worth it. Plus, you got an extra 40 HP from +2 to con. Your constitution saves and strength saves. Not that you're doing con save as a barb, but it's just really not worth it to trade away 8 stat points for a fighter subclass. Maybe you get a little bit better crit rate if you go champion. The point is that if you multi-class out of barbarian, when you get to the end of it, you may have like a nice little surge mid-game, but when you get to the end, it's going to be, you're going to be falling behind as you miss out on your capstone, whether or not you just stayed the course and went to level 20 in barbarian. All right, so let's check out the Bard. At 16 is Defeat. 17, we get a 9th level spell. At 18, we get Superior Inspiration. That'll let us, if we start a fight with no Bardic Inspiration, automatically get 2 when we roll initiative. 19's our Epic Boon. And then our level 20 capstone for Bards is kind of unique. You get Power Word Heal and Power Word Kill, which is really nice because you get 2 always prepared 9th level spells, and you're also going to get to pick a 3rd 9th level spell. So you'll have a lot of versatility if you go all that way up. And then these 2 spells that you get for your capstone can also be twinned to a second target within 10 feet. So the level 20 cap is pretty crazy. I mean, you're literally double casting a 9th level spell. You can either be wiping 2 monsters off the board that have less than 100 hit points, or if you got 2 people that are down, you can go over, touch one, if the other's within 10 feet, and you just instantly have people that are at max health and have all their status effects removed. And that's just pretty crazy awesome and very overpowered. But you are level 20, you're basically almost a demigod at this point. So that's what we'd be giving up if we multi-classed. There are some options for multi-class and bards. I really like to multi-class warlocks with valor bards because being able to cast a cantrip, and that cantrip being Eldritch Blast, you get a lot of bang for your buck, and you may actually be able to, might be worth it if you were a valor bard. If you're the other bards, if you're doing lore or if you're doing dance may be worth it if you wanted to, take some monk levels so that you got some unarmed strike abilities. Or if you're playing, a lore bard and you wanted to go sorcerer to start so that you had constitution saving throws without having to burn a feat for it. Those are all viable. But the only one I would really think that I would multi-class out of if I was playing a bard would be the Valor Bard, just because the being able to cast a cantrip as part of your attack actions and you already get multi-attack. Man, there's just so much there for like a 3-level warlock dip or 4-level warlock dip where you're going to lose out on your 9th level spell and your capstone, but you're going to pick up the ability every round to make attacks and then cast Eldritch Blast. You're going to also get to pick up Pact of the Blade and, be attacking with your charisma. It just feels really good for that Valor Bard Gish feel to go Warlock. But the others, I would probably stay the course on this one too, just because, you're going to have a ton of power at level 20 versus what you would give up. You would lose, if you gave 5 levels up to get another, to the 5th level in some other class, like you wanted extra attack from a fighter or whatever you were going for. You're going to miss out on your 9th level spells and your 2 prepared 9th level spells. You're basically missing out on 3 9th level spell slots. Not slots, spells. That just seems like a lot to give up versus what you would be getting. Next up's our Druid friends. And at 17, you get 9th level spells like all full casters. At 18, you get beast spells, and you can cast spells while you're wild shaped into a beast, as long as the spell doesn't have material components with a specified cost or that will be consumed with the spell. So a little bit there. I think you probably like Revivify and stuff like that. You have to drop wild shape to do the big boys there. And then at level 20, you get the Archdruid ability, and you can turn wild shapes into spell slots, and you get wild shapes if you start combat without one, which is probably pretty rare at level 20 since you have so many to start with. And so, honestly, I'm not a big fan of the last 4 levels of the Druid. The only thing is, Druids are, really versatile. And man, there's just not a lot that you're going to gain by going somewhere else. I don't really know what I would multi-class into. Maybe if I was playing a Stars Druid, I might grab like 6 levels of Cleric so that I could, get their Blessed Healer ability. It synergizes really nicely with the Chalice heals, so you'd be healing other people and then healing yourself for a ton each round. And also going Cleric would let you keep your in-game 9th level spells. But other than that, I really don't know what you multi-class druids with unless you're just playing some. I mean, I did that one with a barbarian spores druid, but that's kind of like a niche build. If you're playing, kind of standard class all the way up, I'd probably maybe grab up 5-6 levels of cleric, as the end level of druid's not that great. If I was a moon druid, I'd probably stay the course all the way through just so I got bigger wild shapes, because giving up those levels would cost you an extra CR on your wild shape level. But other than that, druid's kind of like flip a coin. There's not a lot there at the top, but there's not a lot you get from going somewhere else either way. So really fun class. They're super versatile, but there's not a lot of options of multi-class in there. Okay, now time for the fighter, and this is the one that made me realize how good capstones can be. And so at 17, we get an extra use of Indomitable. That'll give us 3 of those, which that is an absolutely amazing ability under the 2024 rules. Fail, you get to reroll, add your fighter level to it. You're going to be, always passing at this level of the game, unless you just crit neg, which sucks. And then we also get a second action surge, which is really cool. Level 18, fighters get a subclass feature, and those are also pretty nice. If you're like Eldritch Knight, you can now cast a first or second level wizard spell, and you're a champion, you get to crit on 18, so you got a 15% crit rate. Really great. And then at level 20, you get a whole extra attack, so you'll have 4 attacks. And I don't see any reason, if you're playing till end game, there's nothing you're going to get from other places that are going to equal that. The extra action surge and Indomitable plus an extra attack, it's just too much to give up. If you're going to, cap out at like level 15, 16, somewhere in there, like end of tier 3 type campaign, you might go 11 levels of fighter and then transfer somewhere else. If you got charisma, maybe grab some paladin for some smites, or grab up some barbarian levels so that you can rage. Like tier 3, I could see multi-classing a fighter after you got third attack. But if you know you're going all the way to the top, stay the course. Extra action surge, extra Indomitable, extra attack on top of your other 2 extra attacks. It's just awesome. And this is what really got me looking, because when I did my little fighter monk build out, I was like, I wonder how much I would do if I just went straight fighter all the way. And so I actually ended up being able to use a 2-handed weapon, have better armor, more HP, and do way more damage than my little dual-wielding multi-attack monk character was. And I was like, oh, wow, if I just stayed the course, I'm better across the board, except on wisdom saving throws and some utility skills. So that's kind of what kicked me off onto looking into which classes should we multi-class and which ones we shouldn't, because fighter's got a lot at the top. And so if you're playing one, take it all the way to level 20. You're going to love it once you get there. All right, for the monk, I mean, this one's going to be the same as the barbarian. We're going to get a capstone that gives us 8 skill points. If you think about what that is just so much. I mean, that is 4 levels to get 2, and you're going to get 8 for just making it to the end here. So that right there is almost guaranteed enough that you don't need to multi-class out. But monks also get a lot of really good things here too. At 17, you get your last subclass feature, which is always nice to cap out. And your martial arts dice go to D12s. So, I mean, if we're using, short sword and a scimitar, getting 3 attacks on our attack actions and flurry of blows, you're getting to add an extra, 1 to 5 attacks every round. So that's pretty nice little boost also. And then your superior defense, you get that at 18, and your movement goes up by 30. And, that superior defense is just nutso for 3 focus points. And if you've stayed the course, you've got 18 right now. So that's not that much. You get resistance to all damage except force. You're like a super fast barbarian. You're like a dex barbarian basically now. You got resistance to everything. You fly around the field. You've got, 50, 60 foot of movement, depending on what class you're playing, maybe 65. And then, body and mind +4 to dex and wisdom. I mean, that's 8 stat points. The dex alone will add 2 more to each of your attacks and damage, and your wisdom save is just going to be great. You're never going to be getting controlled by anyone. All that being said, if you're playing a in-game campaign, there is no point in not grabbing up that monk capstone. It's just too good to pass on. Okay, pally time. And we finally found one that I don't think you should stay the course on. So at level 17, we get 5th level spells, which are nice. They're big for smites, and you get a couple nice ones at level 5 paladin spell list. At level 18, your aura expands to 30 feet, which is also nice. But your level 20 capstone is different for each of the classes, or each of the subclasses, as the level 20 cap is just a subclass feature. And as I said, I think I would multiclass paladin every time, and I think I would do it in a couple different ways. I would probably go with any of the charisma casters, a sorcerer, a warlock, or a bard. And I might also do a 2-level fighter dip for action surge. And this last part, it isn't quite as OP as it used to be with the change to smite, so you might be better off to just pick up 2 more levels of your caster so you get another spell level to smite with, since you can only smite once a turn. But I would definitely multi-class, like I said, warlock, sorcerer, bard, to get bigger spell slots for smiting. We use the capstone, but it's our subclass cap, and there's a few nice things. The Oath of Glory one is really good. The Vengeance Paladin isn't bad, but the extra damage you have from being able to drop some big boy smites, I mean, at level 20, you only have 1 level 5 Paladin spell. You can multi-class and end up with, level 6 spells if you go Sorcerer, Bard, Lock. Lock, you'll cap out at 5 also, but you will get them all back on short rest. So there's just a lot you gain. If I was going to do this, I would probably, take the 2 levels fighter dip so I can get action surge, so I can go crit fishing for my smites. And I would probably take 7 levels or 11 levels of paladin and then finish out in a caster class. And I think that multi-class makes you the strongest, most well-rounded paladin, as you have your aura, and if you go up to 11, you get to add that extra D8 from your, divine strikes that just add an extra D8 of radiant damage onto all your attacks. That's also nice. That does kind of nerf back the spells you get a bit. So, just something to think about. I don't really like the paladin. Last 5, 6 levels of pally aren't that great. So, if I was playing a paladin, I would always multi-class it into a caster just to boost up my spells and my utility. Take some levels of caster and then, just blow stuff up, go crit fishing with your action surge, and drop those, big old smite bombs on people once you crit. Okay, Rangers. And we all know there is no point in taking the capstone of being a Ranger. Get an extra 2 damage on your Hunter's Mark for your 2 attacks that you get. So basically 4 damage. Hot Garbo, every bit of it. Level 17, you get Precise Hunter and you get 5th level spells. And Precise Hunter gives you advantage on attacks with your Hunter's Mark on it. That's really nice, but I mean, honestly, you're level 17. We've probably got people in the party who are doing things that are giving us advantage, and that's not that much to miss out on. Level 18, you get blind sight for 30 feet, which is really nice to have, but let's face it, we're a ranger. We're most likely farther away than 30 feet, unless we're playing like a melee ranger, which is, a viable option. But there's just no way that I would play a ranger all the way out. I would definitely multi-class, and honestly, I would probably go 11 levels of ranger, and then I would take a 4-level fighter dip to get extra fighting style, action surge, subclass, second wind, and the feat. And then I would take 5 levels of rogue to get to add sneak attack damage in. We get steady aim, and there's our advantage if we need it from far away. And we also get uncanny dodge. And honestly, I would take uncanny dodge over the capstone every day of the week. Like, it's just the 5th level rogue ability is better than the 20th level ranger ability, in my opinion, hands down. And so, I mean, that capstone's shameful. They've got to do something. But there's no point in playing your ranger all the way to level 20. The last of it's not very good. And honestly, most of the subclass capstones aren't that amazing either. I feel like ranger is kind of like paladin. Grab your first 2 subclass features and then skedaddle on out of there and go get something that gives you a little more versatility and utility. Okay, now for rogues. The 17, we get our last subclass, and our sneak attacks go up to 9d6. At 18, we get elusive. 19s are boon, and our sneak attack goes up to 10d6. And then at 20, we get stroke of luck, and that basically says if we fail a d20 test, we can just auto pass it. Rogues are, they're kind of interesting. If we're going to multiclass, I might do a 2 level dip for action surge. That 18th level 18 ability that we'd have to give up for a subclass is pretty good, and never giving up the elusive means that when people attack us, they never can have advantage on the attacks against us unless we're incapacitated. That's a really good ability, especially at high levels where stuff can be knocking you prone and just never giving up advantage, and you're going to have a good armor class at level 20 and all your other rogue stuff to get you out of damage. It seems like a lot to give up. And if you gave up 5 levels to, get an extra attack from one of the martial classes, it's tempting, but you'd be giving up 2d6 and sneak attack damage and your subclass capstone and a feat. And so I just don't think that's worth it. I mean, the 2d6, if you get an extra attack and you're attacking with, 2 daggers, you're doing 2d6, 2d4, depending on your short sword, whatever you're playing with. The sneak attack damage, even though rogues only get 1 attack, is, almost as good as the attack you would get from the extra attack. The only advantage of getting extra attack on a rogue is that if you were to miss, it does give you the option of getting your sneak attack off on the second attack. That's the only thing that really gives you a value of a 5 level martial dip into, barbarian fighter, ranger, whatever you want to go to get extra attack. So honestly, if I was playing a rogue, I think I would just stick with it. Take my capstone. I mean, the assassin's capstone's really nice. You get to do double sneak attack damage. So you'd be dropping 20d6 at level 20. That's just insane. That's a really good capstone. It's hard if you're playing an assassin to think about trading away 10d6 on the first round of combat for 2 extra attacks. So I would probably play a rogue all the way to level 20. If you were going to play, mid-tier campaign, kind of like the fighter, I might go get your second subclass feature, get 5 levels in a martial class. That way you get extra attack for mid-tier. But if you're playing in-game, play rogue all the way to 20. The extra level 20 and the capstone things are really nice. Now for the sorcerers, at 17th, we get our 9th level spells like all our casters do, and then we get extra meta magic options. 18 is a subclass feature, and the capstone features for the sorcerers are actually really good. And for that reason is probably why we would stay the course at least to level 18. 19 is our boon, and then at 20 we get Arcane Apotheosis. And this lets us just use a meta magic for option for free each turn. One time. So that's a pretty nice ability. I mean, that saves a lot of sorcery points, but we do have 20 at this point. So we can literally be twinning a spell or quickening a spell every round and then doing all our other sorceress abilities. So thing with sorcerers, kind of like most of the full casters, there's not a lot of benefit into giving up your big level spells. They're just so powerful. I mean, there's a reason that sorcerers and wizards get almost no features from level 7 up. It's just you get more spells because spells are their feature. And so for that reason, unless I was going to play like a sorcerer Gish that wanted to be like, blade and, blowing stuff up with cantrips with quicken spell and stuff, I would probably just all the way to level 20 play sorcerer straight through. And if you're doing that Gish build, feel free to, drop in, take, whatever levels of Warlock or 6 levels of Valor Bard or Fighter if that's the way you want to go, but those don't really go as well together as the, other Charisma casters. Also, going Bard, Valor Bard is just such a good Gish subclass now, being able to make attacks and then fire cantrips off. So I would probably stay the course on the Sorcerer, unless you're playing a Gish, and then maybe, branch out into Warlock or Bard. All right, for Warlock, at level 17, we get our Mystic Arcanum 9th level spells, and we get a 4th spell slot, which for a Warlock is really nice. And then 18, we don't get anything. 19's a boon, and then 20 is Eldritch Master. And what this lets you do is it gives you back all 4 of your spell slots when you use your Magical Cunning. But at this point in the game, Magical Cunning gives you back half your spell slots rounded up, so you would have 3 spell slots up to level 17, and you would be getting 2 back each time you use your Magical Cunning once a day. And so it's not really that much. It's giving you 2 5th level spell slots back once a day that you're already getting back on a short rest, twice a day. So the capstone is, it's so-so, but if I was going to have to pick, I would probably multiclass out of Warlock, and I'd probably do it in a couple different ways. If I was going Gish melee, I would stay Warlock till I was level 12 so that we could get Thirsting Blade and have that 3rd attack, which would be nice. And then I would probably go Fighter or Paladin, Paladin for smites and Fighter for extra attacks and, Action Surge, all those goodies. But if I was going to play a caster lock, I would probably multiclass out at 11. And that way we got our level 6 Mystic Arcanum, and we got our 3rd level spell slot. And then all our spells would also be level 5. And then I would go Sorcerer. It's just such a good combo. The Sorlock is always been overpowered. Getting to take Pack Magic and turn it into sorcery spell slots. Plus that would give us 9 levels. We would get up to 4th level Sorcerer spells that way. And it would just be a nice combo. And there's really good synergy with that. And so that's the way I would go with it if I was a Warlock. You could also, as we spoke about, do the Valor Bard. That's kind of like already went over with the Bard subclassing and multiclassing. It's really what I want to play. My next pick would be a Bard lock. That they just go so well together. But I wouldn't play a Warlock all the way up. I would multiclass out at 11 or 12. Finally, that brings us to our Wizards, and we get 9th level spells at 17. At level 18, you get to cast a 1st and a 2nd level spell like a cantrip that you pick. No spell slots needed. They're just at wills now. 19's the boon, and then 20, you get signature spells, and you get to pick 2 level 3 spells that you can cast one time for free without using a spell slot. And so, kind of like sorcerers, there's nothing but spell slots from 5 to 18 for wizards. Like, that's the last time you get a feature is at level 5, and then you just get spells and spell slots all the way up. I mean, at level 18, it's nice that we get this, and you can grab a couple of nice utility spells that you can, use over and over. The problem I have with that ability is that they have to be spells that are cast as an action, so you can't get, like, the shield spell and use it as a reaction or absorb elements. That would give you, like, a nice utility. So it just really lets you at level 18 cast 1st and 2nd level spells for free, which isn't really that much. And let's face it, you have like 25 spell slots at this point. I'm not crazy about the capstones on wizards. The only problem is there's not really anything to multi-class them into that's going to do that much for you besides just getting the spell slots and the spells, because their spell list is really ridiculously good, and that's what makes wizards great in the game, and that's why they don't have a lot of features. when they come out with the new Artificer subclass, there'll be some synergy there as they're both intelligence based, and you could build like a tanky wizard Artificer Gish combo that would be really nice. And also, when you get the Blade Singer comes out, that'll be another good one that has some, possibility of multiclassing. But as we are right now in the 2024 rules, until those two other subclasses come out, and I guess Artificer is technically a whole new class, I would just play Wizard all the way to 20. You don't really get much from jumping out. So that's my breakdown of where I think in-game characters should be multiclassed. And as I said at the start, there's tons of tier 2 and 3 options for multiclassing that are far more optimal than just playing a single class. But if you're headed to tier 4 and you're going all the way to level 20, a lot of those capstones are worth you giving up a little bit of that ground in tier 2 and 3 so that you really excel when you get to that end game. Or if you're building a level 20 one-shot character, I know when I build level 20 one-shot characters, I'm like, I need 5 different classes in here and I want all these features. And it's like, honestly, if you're going to play somebody that's part fighter, you're almost better to just be a fighter. Same thing with a lot of the classes, monks and rogues and, barbarians too. A lot of the martial classes, you're really better off to just take their capstones and stay the course all the way to the end, or build them all the way out if it's for a one shot. And I kind of like that. I think it's cool that we have so much versatility in this game that if you're playing at different tiers, multi-classing is great. And then if you're going the whole way, you're kind of rewarded for picking a lane and kind of staying in it. And I really appreciate that about D&D. I think it's one of the things that makes this game really great. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dragons and Dice. Thank you all for spending your time listening to me go on about my favorite TTRPG. And if you could, tell a friend about us. Word of mouth is the best way to get, exposure for a show. And please leave likes and follows and comments, as they also help. And until next time, may your DMs be kind. May your D20s roll high. Bye.